It was supposed to be a quiet Thursday morning, the kind that draped itself in low-hanging clouds and the sleepy hush of drizzle, where the world seemed to move slower and conversations were spoken in softer tones. I had taken the morning off under the pretense of catching up on a backlog of work at home, but in truth, I just needed a break. Not from work, really, but from everything. You know when something feels off in your life? Like a painting that's been tilted slightly, just enough to bother you, but not enough to immediately notice what's wrong. That was my marriage lately. Subtle tension, lingering silences where words used to live, smiles that didn't quite reach the eyes. Nothing explicit, nothing I could point to and say there, that's the problem. But it was enough to stir an unease that trailed me like a shadow. Her name is Elise, my wife of 8 years. We met during grad school, me in architecture, her in literature. I was the grounded one, the planner, the thinker. She was all poetry and fire and instinct. I used to love how unpredictable she was, how she'd change our weekend plans on a whim because the clouds looked like they were about to confess something. Maybe that should have been my first clue, in retrospect. That morning, I left the house a little after 9 a.m., telling Elise I'd be at the local co-working space downtown. She smiled from behind her coffee mug, still in her robe, hair tied up messily, laptop open on the couch. "Good luck designing the future," she said with a half-smile that felt hollow. I nodded, leaned in to kiss her forehead. She tilted her head just slightly enough that my lips landed on hair instead of skin. It was nothing, but it wasn't nothing, you know? Instead of going to the co-working space, I drove around aimlessly, my fingers tapping against the steering wheel, wipers brushing away a light mist. Something compelled me to go to Café Amor, a small corner cafe Elise and I used to frequent before life became a series of shared calendars and unread messages. We hadn't been there together in months. When I pulled into the parking lot, I noticed it wasn't busy. Just a couple of cars, including a silver sedan I vaguely recognized but couldn't immediately place. I entered through the side door, already imagining the comfort of a warm croissant and a cappuccino, the scent of roasted beans already reaching me like a memory. And then I saw her, seated by the window, Elise, in a soft blue sweater I didn't recognize, her hands resting lightly on the table. Not alone. Across from her sat a man, early 30s maybe, clean-shaven, dark hair. He wore a watch I instantly clocked as expensive, too expensive for casual coffee on a rainy morning. But what hit me like a slap wasn't his face or his presence. It was their hands. Their fingers were interlaced. Not in that casual, friendly way. No, this was something intimate. Familiar. Their coffee cups sat untouched. My feet froze just inside the threshold, the world narrowing to a tunnel with only that table in focus. She laughed. God, she laughed, and it wasn't the laugh I'd heard in months. It was the Elise I remembered from before, full of spark, of ease. Her face lit up in a way it hadn't for me in what felt like forever. I backed away quietly, unnoticed, the bell above the cafe door mercifully silent. My heart pounded, not just with the shock of what I'd seen, but with a strange blend of humiliation and clarity. I sat back in my car, hands shaking as they gripped the steering wheel. There was no confrontation, no immediate rage, just a heavy, soul-deep realization that something was truly, irrevocably broken. I didn't drive home. I couldn't. Instead, I sat in that car for what felt like hours, the rain picking up, the windows fogging, my thoughts looping endlessly. Who was he? How long? Had I missed the signs? Was I blind, or just in denial? I didn't want answers, not yet. I needed to feel the pain before I could dissect it. So I drove to the edge of town, parked near an overlook Elise and I used to visit in our early days. The view was still the same, mist curling over the hills like whispers, but it felt different now, like the ghost of something I used to believe in. My phone buzzed. A message from Elise. "Hope work's going well. Pick up oat milk if you get a chance. Love you. Love you." 3 simple words, typed out like muscle memory. Had she sent that before or after her little coffee date? Did she mean it? Or was it just part of the routine now, like brushing teeth or locking the door? I stared at the message until the screen dimmed, then tossed the phone onto the passenger seat. My mind started to drift, not just into the past few weeks, but the past few years. The distance hadn't happened overnight. It was a slow erosion. Missed calls, canceled dates, An increasing reliance on routine to mask the fact that passion had quietly packed its bags and left. I kept convincing myself it was just the phase of life we were in, work stress, bills, the grind of stability. But now I wondered, had I been the only one trying to hold on? That evening, Elise came home like normal. She walked through the door with the same breezy warmth, the scent of rain on her coat, hair slightly damp. I watched her from the kitchen, stirring a pot of soup I wasn't hungry for. She kissed my cheek lightly. Smells good. What is it? Tomato basil. I replied, not looking at her. Your favorite. She paused, then said, you're sweet. And I thought, am I? Or just blind? We ate in near silence. I asked about her day, and she lied beautifully, effortlessly. I nodded, smiled, played my part. But inside, something had cracked. A split down the middle of what I believed our marriage was. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, listening to the soft rhythm of her breathing beside me. I imagined her fingers wrapped in someone else's. Her smile, the one I hadn't seen in months, given freely to another man. And I decided I needed to know everything. No more assumptions. No vague suspicions. I wanted clarity. Truth. Even if it shattered me. Even if it made it impossible to come back from. You don't sleep the same way once doubt moves into your house. It doesn't matter how soft the mattress is or how many years you've spent lying next to someone. The moment you stop believing in the story you've built together, the silence between breaths becomes deafening. The bed might as well be a cliffside. Every creak of the floorboards sounds like a warning. That night, I lay awake with Elise sleeping beside me, her back to mine, her breathing deep and even. I kept my body perfectly still, like movement might trigger a collapse. But my mind moved like a freight train with no brakes. I kept replaying that image at the cafe, the way her fingers laced into his, her laugh, that glow. She'd never looked at her phone once. She didn't even look around. She was too comfortable, too immersed. Like it wasn't the first time. The next morning, I pretended nothing had changed. I made coffee. I asked about her work. She kissed me on the cheek and told me she had an early meeting. I watched her walk out the door, her heels clicking with rhythmic confidence. It was that easy, that clean. She disappeared into her day like a magician into smoke, leaving behind no trace of betrayal, just the faint scent of perfume and a coffee mug with smudged lipstick. I sat at the kitchen table long after she left, the house eerily still. My fingers tapped against the mug, my mind already mapping out what came next. If I confronted her now, she'd lie. I was almost certain. She'd pivot, minimize, tell me I was misinterpreting what I saw, that he was just a friend, a colleague, someone she was mentoring. I could already hear the script, but I didn't want her explanation. I wanted her truth. So I took a sick day, and I started watching her live from the outside. Over the next few days, I followed Elise. Not like a shadow, not with binoculars or disguises. Just, subtly, strategically. I watched where she went, who she met. I memorized her patterns. Monday morning, she went to work as usual, only she didn't. Instead, she parked 4 blocks from her office and walked into a small bookstore. I waited from a distance, the rain fogging my windshield. 20 minutes later, the same man from the cafe walked in. This time, they sat in the back. No hand-holding this time, but close, leaning in, smiling in that same familiar way. When they parted, she didn't go to the office. She went home, and I realized then that her work days weren't what I thought they were. Tuesday, I left a voice recorder in her car. Just a simple device, discreet, voice-activated. I felt sick doing it. My hands trembled as I placed it under her seat. But I told myself this was about preservation, not paranoia. I deserved to know what was real. Wednesday morning, I listened to the recording. I expected hushed phone calls or confessions. What I got was worse. There was music at first, then silence, then her voice, humming. A call came in, unknown number. "Hey," she whispered. "Miss you already." My stomach dropped. She laughed quietly. "Last time at the cafe was risky. I think I saw someone I knew." She paused. "No, I didn't say anything. He didn't see me." I stopped the recording. My ears rang with static even in the silence. She had seen me, and she said nothing. The way she said it, like I was some minor inconvenience, a potential hiccup. Not a husband, not a life partner. Just a variable in her equation she needed to account for. I should have been furious. I should have stormed into her work, her home, her life, and demanded answers. But instead, I just sat there, hollowed out. It's strange, the things betrayal does to you. You don't feel rage immediately. You feel small, like the world suddenly became a place where you don't belong. That night, she came home like always, kissed me softly, asked if I wanted to order in. I said yes, numbly, and watched her move around the kitchen like it was just another day, like she hadn't just erased me from her narrative. But I wasn't done. I needed to know more. Not just who he was, but how far this had gone. I checked our shared bank account. Nothing unusual. Then I checked her separate one, the one she used for freelance work and personal expenses. Transfers. Small ones, but routine. And one labeled AM service. A few clicks led me to a billing history, a private counseling office, couples therapy, but I had never stepped foot inside that office. We'd never been. So she was going without me, or with someone else. And it hit me like a punch. She was treating this affair like a relationship. Thursday morning, she left earlier than usual. Said there was an off-site meeting at a hotel downtown. I knew the name. I knew the location. I waited an hour, then followed. She wasn't there for a meeting. The man from the cafe met her in the lobby. They walked through the doors side by side, their fingers brushing, then intertwining like it was second nature. They laughed. She tilted her head in that way she used to with me, like she was soaking up the moment. They checked in at the front desk. I didn't follow. I couldn't. Instead, I sat in my car across the street, staring at the entrance, the rain beginning to fall again, as if the sky was mocking me with its cliches. I stared so long I forgot how long I'd been there. My hands gripped the steering wheel like it could anchor me to something real. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just felt a cold resolve take root. Because now I had everything I needed. No more wondering. No more forgiving what I didn't understand. No more pretending we were still us. And maybe, just maybe, I could turn this pain into something else. You never quite realize when morning begins. It doesn't announce itself with sobs or black clothes. It creeps in during the small moments. When you smell her shampoo on a scarf, or catch yourself setting aside her favorite cup before remembering it's all a lie. That was the hardest part. The habits I couldn't unlearn. The toothbrush I never moved. The way I still slept on my side of the bed, careful not to disturb her pillows. Even though I knew, fully and finally knew, Elise wasn't mine anymore. Not in spirit. Not in truth. But I didn't confront her. Not yet. Instead, I cleaned the house. Scrubbed the grout in the kitchen. Washed every blanket. Rearranged the bookshelves. I wasn't nesting. I was preparing. Clearing the stage before the final act. I began to think not just like a husband, but like a strategist. I knew I'd only get one shot. One moment to turn the tables in a way that she couldn't spin, couldn't lie her way out of. And if there's one thing I'm good at, it's structure. Planning. Precision. Architecture teaches you that. You can't build on crumbling foundations. You tear down first, clear the debris, and rebuild with steel. I started documenting everything. Printed bank statements. Screenshot her text logs from the cloned phone. I even converted the voice recording from her car into a clear MP3 file. Gave it a title. Miss You Already. 10:42 a.m. There was something surreal about listening to her voice when she wasn't performing for me. It had a softness to it I hadn't heard in years. Warmth that had long been missing from our dinners, our late-night talks, our lovemaking. She wasn't cold with me, just distant, distracted, like I was a task on her to-do list. But with him, she glowed. There were more messages now. Plans. Jokes. The kind of intimacy that forms over time. A routine. And worst of all, an I love you. I stared at those 3 words, typed on a screen, and something in me hardened. That was it. The last straw. Not because she loved someone else, but because she didn't even have the decency to love me less gently. She faded out like a song playing from another room. So I decided to create my own ending. The first step was finding him. I dug through Elise's texts until I found his name. Lucas. That felt right. It sounded polished. Harmless. The kind of name you'd trust. The kind of man who'd steal your wife and still hold the door open for you afterward. LinkedIn gave me everything. Lucas Harmon. Financial consultant. Member of 3 professional boards. Recently divorced. No kids. A clean slate, I thought. Of course. His firm had a public directory. I emailed from a burner account pretending to be a potential client. Scheduled a consultation under the name Daniel Reeves. I wasn't planning to go. I just wanted the address. The lay of the land. And, if I was lucky, a receptionist who didn't guard their guest log. Next came Elise's calendar. She'd linked it to our shared home account years ago and never disabled it. Lazy oversight. I scrolled through until I found the recurring entries marked client check-in L.H. every Thursday at 9 a.m. So the bookstore wasn't a fluke. She was seeing him weekly. Probably more. That's when the idea came. Bold, cinematic, something that would echo long after the words were said. I wasn't just going to confront her. I was going to let her reveal herself. The plan was simple. Create an environment where Elise would show her hand without realizing I was watching. It would start at the cafe, her favorite place, the scene of the first betrayal. I booked a private event for that coming Thursday morning, just 2 hours. Told them it was for a surprise engagement proposal, just not who was proposing or who was being proposed to. Paid extra for discretion. Then I created a fake flyer and had a friend post it near her office, knowing she passed by that corner every day. Pop-up reading, Romantic Futures, hosted by a fictional author, but featuring poetry Elise once told me she loved. She wouldn't miss it. I made sure of that. I asked my friend to be there, playing the role of the organizer. All Elise had to do was enter. Lucas, of course, would be there too. And so would I. That morning, I dressed carefully. Not like a man about to explode his marriage, but like a man she hadn't seen in years. Crisp blazer, clean shave, calm eyes. The version of me she first fell for. The one I buried beneath home repairs and quarterly taxes. When I arrived at the cafe, the space was already staged. Tables set up as if for a cozy event. My friend nodded once before slipping out the back. I took my seat in the far corner, behind a decorative screen. Just enough to see, but not be seen. It took 13 minutes. Elise walked in first. She wore a mustard blouse I'd never seen, tucked into a skirt that hugged her just enough to remind me what I used to come home to. Her hair was pulled back loosely, the way she did when she wanted to appear effortless. She glanced around, smiling faintly. Then Lucas followed. Same casual blazer. Same practiced ease. He touched her elbow lightly, and she laughed like she hadn't just gutted our marriage with a whisper. They sat at the same table. Her hand found his instantly. They whispered, smiled, toasted their coffee cups. I watched the entire thing unfold with the detachment of a director watching dailies. It was almost beautiful in its simplicity. Two people playing out a story they thought was theirs alone. I gave it another 7 minutes. Then I stood, walked calmly out from behind the screen. Every footstep echoed more loudly than the last, though no one else was in the room. She didn't see me right away, but Lucas did. His eyes widened slightly, his smile faltered. He looked at me like someone seeing a ghost. "Elise," he said softly. She turned, and for the briefest of seconds, she froze, her hand still in his. Then she pulled it away as if burned. But it was too late. The image was sealed. Her, him, the cafe, all of it. I stopped at their table. My hands weren't shaking. My voice was steady. "Hope I'm not interrupting," I said quietly. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. Lucas tried to speak, but I raised a hand. "Please," I said, "let's not ruin the performance." I pulled a small remote from my coat pocket, pointed it toward the back wall, where a projector had been mounted for the reading. The screen flickered to life. And then, audio. Her voice. "Miss you already." Followed by the rest. The whisper. The laughter. The lies. She turned pale. Lucas's mouth moved, but nothing came out. I didn't wait for the ending. I turned and walked out, the audio still playing behind me, echoing through the empty cafe like a requiem. I didn't look back. The cafe door closed behind me with a soft chime, but the noise inside, my wife's voice playing from a speaker, felt like it still rang in my ears. I didn't run. I didn't shout. I just walked, slowly, down the wet sidewalk, past old brick storefronts, beneath gray skies that felt like the perfect audience for my quiet unraveling. A drizzle had begun to fall again, cold and barely noticeable, like the world trying to cleanse itself. I didn't look back. Not once. Let them figure out what to say. Let Elise chase after me, or not. Let Lucas sit in stunned silence, realizing he'd wandered into a performance he didn't script. I reached my car, sat behind the wheel, and stared at my own reflection in the rearview mirror. I looked calm, too calm, but inside, I was vibrating. It wasn't rage. That had passed. This was something else, an eerie clarity, a precise coldness that felt more surgical than emotional. I didn't feel like the betrayed husband anymore. I felt like something reborn, or maybe something that had snapped quietly in the night and reassembled itself into something sharper. My phone buzzed. It was Elise. First a message. Where are you? Please come back. We need to talk. Then a second. It's not what it looks like. I laughed aloud at that one. An actual, bitter laugh that startled even me. Of all the things she could have said, she chose the line people say when it's exactly what it looks like. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened my second phone, the one that mirrored hers. The one she still didn't know about. I watched her frantic texts to Lucas unfold in real time. He saw everything. I think he planned it. What do we do? Then, a few moments later, to me again. Please just come home. I can explain. Explain what? That she fell in love with someone else and just forgot to mention it? That she let me sleep beside her, week after week, while her heart moved on without a word? That she kissed me goodnight with a mouth that whispered, I love you, to someone else in the daylight? I started driving. Not home. Just somewhere. Anywhere. I ended up at a bluff overlooking the river, where Elise and I once watched fireworks the first summer after our wedding. I hadn't been back in years. The wooden bench was still there, weathered and damp from the rain. I sat anyway. For a while, I did nothing. Just breathed. Listened to the soft wind and the distant traffic. And then I opened the envelope I'd tucked into my coat pocket earlier that morning. Inside, 3 DNA test results. One for each of our children. I hadn't wanted to check. But after everything else, I needed truth. Full truth. I had taken their cheek swabs while they were sleeping, telling myself it was for closure. The results? James, 99. 999% match. Sonia, 99. 999% match. My breath caught as I opened the final one. Elise Jr., named after her mother. Our youngest. 99. 999%. Not a match. I felt the cold settle into my bones like winter air through an open window. She wasn't mine. And now the silence made sense. The tension. The distance. It wasn't just guilt. It was the weight of a secret Elise had buried inside our home like a landmine, waiting for me to step on it. I folded the papers neatly and put them back into the envelope. I didn't cry. Not then. Not even later. The grief was too big for tears. It lived in a deeper place. My phone buzzed again. This time a call. Elise. I let it ring out. Then another message. I need to see you. I'm at home. I'm not running. I believed that much. She wouldn't run. Elise was too composed for that. She would face this like she did everything else, with calm explanations and calculated softness. The worst kind of betrayal, wrapped in empathy. I drove home just as the clouds finally parted and left behind that weird brightness that comes after rain, when everything is too still and too clean. Her car was in the driveway. So was his. Lucas. Interesting choice. I stepped through the front door without knocking. They were in the living room, seated apart, like children waiting to be scolded. Elise stood immediately. Please, she said. Let me talk. Lucas tried to rise, but I held up a hand. Sit. He obeyed. Elise, I said, you can talk. But you're going to do it in front of both of us. She looked stricken, but nodded. I didn't plan for this to happen, she began, her voice breaking slightly. I said nothing. She continued. It started after your father passed. You shut down. You wouldn't let me in. And I felt alone. Lucas was just a friend at first. Lucas looked down at the floor. Elise stepped closer, careful, like I was a frightened animal. I never stopped loving you, she said. I just needed something that reminded me I was still alive. I pulled the envelope from my coat. I'm glad you mentioned life, I said quietly. I handed it to her. She opened it. Her eyes scanned the first result, then the second, then the third. She didn't say a word, but her face collapsed in on itself like something had caved inside her. Lucas looked confused. What is that? I turned to him. It's the truth. About who the father is. Of a little girl who thinks I'm her dad. Elise's hand trembled. I didn't know for sure, she whispered. Until now. And there it was. The real confession. I looked at her, really looked, and realized I didn't know her anymore. Or maybe I never truly had. Just a version. A filtered image projected onto my love. I'm sorry, she said, the tears coming now. I thought I could protect you from it. From her knowing. I stepped back. There was only one thing left. I want you both out, I said simply. Tonight. Lucas started to speak, but I cut him off. Don't say anything. Just leave. Elise didn't argue. She didn't beg. She just nodded. I'll go pack some things, she said. I watched her walk down the hall. Lucas lingered, looking helpless. You were just a mistake, I said, my voice low. A passing storm. But I'll be the one she remembers when this is over. He said nothing. Eventually, he followed her. I stood in the living room alone, surrounded by the ghosts of a life that had just come undone. But I wasn't broken. Not anymore. I was ready. For the final act. And it wouldn't be quiet. It's strange how silence changes after the storm. Once it meant loneliness, absence. Now, it feels like clarity. The house was empty. Truly empty. No footsteps padding down the hall. No soft humming from the bathroom. No creak of the closet door she always left slightly ajar. Just me, and the slow hum of the refrigerator, and the faint tick of the wall clock. Elise and Lucas left that night. They didn't say goodbye. She packed a single suitcase. He waited in the car like a scolded teenager. She didn't try to explain again. Didn't cry. Just walked down the steps with the same quiet grace she used to walk down the aisle. I watched from the porch, arms folded, a version of myself I didn't recognize anymore. As her taillights disappeared down the street, I exhaled. Not from relief, but from release. You don't know how heavy something is until you set it down. That weekend, I scrubbed the house top to bottom. Cleared drawers. Washed sheets. Removed the framed photos from the hallway and replaced them with minimalist prints. Mountains, oceans, cities I hadn't visited yet. I kept one photo. Just one. The kids and me, at the beach, last summer. Elise had taken it. But it was mine now. I had the legal documents drawn up that week. Divorce petition, full custody filings, property division. The DNA test would shield me from child support for Elise Jr., but I wasn't abandoning her. Not yet. Not without a choice. She didn't know yet what I'd planned. Because I didn't want revenge that just wounded. I wanted one that revealed. That transformed. And so I waited. 2 weeks passed. In that time, Elise moved in with Lucas. I knew this because the text messages between them, still mirrored to the second phone, continued like clockwork. The usual couple's progression. Cozy photos. Grocery lists. Pet names. And then, tension. Little fractures began to appear. She grew cold. He grew clingy. She worked late. He accused. The honeymoon, it seemed, was running short on fuel. I waited until I knew they were stable enough to believe they had something. That's when I executed the final step. It started with the email. I wrote it carefully. No anger. Just honesty, polished and precise like a final architectural draft. Subject line. From the husband you lied to. I CC'd 3 people. Her mother, his boss, and Elise. In it, I explained everything. The affair. The DNA results. The voice recordings. The cafe. The hotel. The months of duplicity. Attached. Audio files, screenshots, timelines, the prenatal records she'd buried in her Gmail archives. Yes, I had those too. A well-documented, time-stamped archive of Elise's dual life, handed over not to shame her, but to unmask her. She had always cared about image, about appearances, about narrative. So I rewrote hers. I clicked send. Then I waited. It took 4 minutes for the first response. Her mother. Call me now. What have you done? Then Lucas. You vindictive bastard. Stay out of our lives. But I wasn't in their lives anymore. That was the point. They were just standing in the fallout of their own decisions now, seeing it from the outside for the first time. A week later, Elise requested a meeting. Not through text. Not by phone. She showed up at my door, pale and quiet, holding her hands in front of her like a schoolgirl facing a principal. I let her in. We sat in the kitchen, across from each other, the same table where we used to play Scrabble and plan vacations and teach James his spelling words. Why? She asked softly. Why did you do that? I didn't raise my voice. I didn't do anything, I said. I just opened the blinds and let the light in. She looked tired. Not just physically, soul tired. Like she was coming to terms with a version of herself she didn't like very much. You didn't have to go that far, she said. It was cruel. No, I said. It was deliberate. She wiped her eyes. Lucas lost his job. I know. My mother won't speak to me. I know. And Elise. She trailed off, unable to say her daughter's name. I've started the process, I said, my voice even, of guardianship. I'll raise her. Not because she's mine, but because she deserves better than the two of you. Tears fell now. Real ones. But she is yours, Elise whispered. In every way but one. And she stopped herself. I was scared. And selfish. And I wanted everything at once. And you lost everything at once, I said. We sat in silence. After a moment, she asked, do you hate me? I thought about that. No, I said. Hating you would mean I still feel something. She nodded, like she knew that answer was coming. Like she needed to hear it anyway. I'll sign the papers, she said. I stood. That's not why you're here. She blinked. You're here because you want to know if I'll ever forgive you. She didn't respond. And the answer is no, I said. But I'll let you make it right. Slowly. With your daughter. With yourself. Not with me. She stood too. We were close now. The distance between us felt vast. Then she did something I didn't expect. She hugged me. Softly. Gently. Not to rekindle. Not to manipulate. But to say goodbye. And for the first time in a long time, I let her. She left without looking back. That was the last time I saw Elise. It's been a year now. The house is quieter, but filled with warmth. James and Sonia adjusted faster than I expected. Kids are like that. Resilient. Open-hearted. They ask about their mother sometimes. I answer with grace. No venom. Elise Jr. We just call her Ellie now. Knows something shifted. But I love her no differently. Biology isn't the only blueprint for family. Every few weeks, a small package arrives in the mail. Children's books. Notes. Gifts. From Elise. Ellie draws pictures and sends them back. Sometimes she asks, will mommy come visit? And I say, maybe one day. But not today. Not until Elise builds something worth returning from. As for me, I started running again. Reconnected with friends I'd neglected. Spent weekends doing things I used to put off. I laugh more now. Not because life is easier, but because I stopped pretending it was perfect. I survived something that almost unmade me. And in the end, I didn't just catch her at the cafe. I caught myself too. And I chose not to look away.